All right, guys, welcome back to the channel and to the 2025 prep series. We are going through a full day of eating today. So I'm going to show you everything that is going in right now to get shredded on the way to stage. We are currently about 9-ish weeks away from show number 1 right now. It is Friday and the show is on a Sunday, so I try not to claim the weeks out before it's actually there. So even though I could probably say, 9 weeks and a day or two out, I tend to prefer just say, 10 weeks until I'm actually at Sunday, and then it'll be 9 weeks out. So, but yeah, we're gonna go through absolutely everything from a meal breakdown perspective, why I eat what I eat, but also the macro breakdown and what's in every meal. Things are not necessarily at a spot where they're super low right now. That they will eventually get there. That is something that we are anticipating. But given that we still have 9 weeks to go, we are just continuing to chip along and continuing to pull stuff as needed. So like I said, I'm gonna guide you guys through that entirely. In the last video, I did show you my gut health drink that I have every morning. So that's already gone in this morning, and I've had a little bit of black coffee, but I haven't, neither one of those things have I eaten, so I don't think I've cheated by not showing you those things. But we're going to get started with meal 1 here shortly, so I'm gonna sauce that up real quick, and then I'll show you guys exactly what's in it and all that fun stuff. I may do this because I'm a little bit lazy, but I don't cut up the peppers and onions that I have in this meal. Everything is always just cut up with kitchen scissors. So I can't really think of anything that I really cut with a knife. Even when I slice up like sirloin steak or something, I will literally chop it up with scissors. But hey, I don't have to pull the cutting board out. It's easy. All I gotta do is wash this off, and it's just simple, Again, maybe it's just me being lazy. Okay guys, and if you want the real secret to being big and strong and shredded, if you're married, make breakfast for your wife. But do a better job than I did this morning, because I broke the yolk, and we all know that that is just unacceptable standards. So it looks like the verdict is out this morning that I have no ability to perform under pressure because I broke not 1, but 2 yolks. That is not a common occurrence, but what we have here for meal 1 is going to be 2 whole eggs and 150 grams of egg whites combined with 100 grams of sauteed peppers and onions. I put a little bit of seasoning on the egg whites, usually just like some cumin and maybe some chili powder, but I try to keep it kind of mellow and not go too crazy with the sauce because my stomach has been a little off. That's part of the reason why we put the gut health drink in. So, but I do have a little bit of sriracha on here just to add to the flavor of this. But yeah, I'm gonna enjoy my 1 full egg, my broken egg, and the rest of this meal. And then I will catch up with you guys for the pre-workout meal. All right, guys, we're here for meal number 2. We got the pre-workout cream of rice, the fan favorite. This is 100 grams, so the whole directions on how I make this is on my Instagram. I'll put the link in the description below so you guys can watch if you want to make the same one. I put a little bit more water in it these days because it volumizes the food a little bit more and makes it feel like I'm eating a bit more. But it is 100 grams of cream of rice. It's 440-ish grams of water right now, and then a 20-gram serving of peanut butter. and 40 grams of whey protein. Alongside that, we also have the 100 grams of berries and the electrolytes and creatine. So this all goes in while, again, I watch somebody train typically before I go train. So I'm training push today. So I will watch somebody that's going to be training chest or shoulders or something of that nature. My latest fixation with YouTube has been watching people that are around the same amount of timeline as me. It is kind of like a weird, I think it's probably not an unhealthy comparison, but it always is useful to see kind of where their frame of mind is, especially athletes that I look up to, where their frame of mind is, like for me right now, around the 10 weeks out mark, kind of how they speak about things, and it kind of helps me reframe. I would highly recommend watching things like that or stuff like this when you are in prep yourself versus people who tend to go like the mukbang and the calorie challenge, man versus food routes. That makes the mental strain of dieting so much more difficult when you're thinking about all the things that you can't have. I would highly recommend leaning in and embracing, basically surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded and who are doing the same things that you are, even if that means that you're watching content that's, you know, a couple years old sometimes is what I'll go do. So I'll put this down. Like I said, I'll drink this, get a little bit of caffeine in my system, and then we're going to be off to go train, and the post-workout meal is going to be something that is going down when we are right finished with that session. So I will walk you guys through that here in a second. The macros for this will be on the screen. All right, guys, so we just arrived at the gym, and I wanted to say a note that is not necessarily 100% related to eating, but it definitely impacts how your nutrition is going to be utilized, and it impacts basically how you can manage nutrition and things like that during a prep. Or if you're gaining for that matter, but that is your caffeine intake. So I didn't walk you guys through my pre-workout and intra this time around, but I do usually have about 125-ish milligrams of caffeine before I go train. It's something that I want to be able to scale up as prep goes on, but I'm not going to go necessarily too ridiculously crazy with it, because there does come a point where it's just counterproductive. It ends up stressing your body out a lot more, and you don't get any of the extra additional benefits. So I don't imagine that pre-workout is going to get anywhere above, you know, maybe 250, 300. Because I do also want to make sure that I have about 100 or so that I can have at the beginning of the morning. But the main thing is being mindful of when you're taking in caffeine, because this is one thing that really changed a lot for me from this last prep, because I was working a 9 to 5, and then I also was going and training at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, basically like right after. And I would be taking in anywhere from 250 to 350, sometimes even 400 milligrams of caffeine to amp me up for my session. And then I'd be in there training until 8:30, and then I'd be trying to go to bed like 2 hours later. It doesn't work like that. The half-life of caffeine is like 6 hours. So not only does it stay in your system, it really disrupts your sleep, even if you can't feel the effects still. So you might be like, I can, you know, drink a coffee and go right to sleep. It's still impacting the quality of your sleep. So try to get your caffeine servings in at least 6 hours before you go to sleep. Those are the main things. Try to break it up as well too. If you're taking in more than like 200 or so milligrams a day, try to break it up into multiple servings. Usually one that's like in the beginning in the morning, like I said, for me is best because it gets me ready to go work, but then now I'm ready to go and get after it in the training session. But so be considerate of that, and also be considerate of the fact that caffeine is also a vasoconstrictor, i.e. when it actually goes in, you are limiting your body's ability to pump blood into the muscle that you're trying to work. So if that's important to you, which it is for growth, not that pump is the only indicator for what grows, but you should be able to connect very firmly and flood the target area with muscle. That's the goal. So if you are taking in tons of caffeine, you're constricting your veins and your body's natural ability to pump blood into those areas, and therefore deteriorating the quality of your session. So especially if you're in a diet and you don't have as much access to food, and your food's just lower, you're not going to be flooding it with carbs as much because your glycogen stores are going to be lower. So don't also hit yourself on the other side of the spectrum as well, and really overdo it on caffeine, because then your pumps are just going to go to crap. You're already going to be struggling with that enough when you're running flat during a prep. You don't want to be adding insult to injury in that effect. But so we're going to walk in here, we're going to get the push session in real quick, and then I will show you guys what the post-workout meal looks like. Guys, we wrapped up the session. We just left Costco as well. Had to pick up a couple things. We got rice and some watermelon and some other stuff for Megan. But right now we are about to put down the post-workout meal, which is very exciting because it's one of the only meals that's left that has a good bit of carbs in it. We have 100 grams of raw weight rice, 100 grams of green beans, and then 150 grams of raw weight ground beef. This is definitely one of the more favorite meals that I have right now. Like I said, it's one of the only ones that has like a substantial amount of rice left in it. So we are going to put that sucker down. And then there are 2 meals left for the day. As usual, the macros for this one will be on the screen. And then we will go over and see what meal 4 is going to be looking like once we get back home. But this one too, the only adjustment that I've really made in like the last year, realistically, has been just up or down on rice. Honestly, I mean, I've probably even been eating it for longer than that, but I've also cut out, I started adding hot sauce into it, like Cholula 0-calorie stuff, and I had to pull it back out because of the gut issues. So we'll put this down, and then I will show you guys what meal 4 looks like. All right, and meal number 4 is the simplest of them all. That is the Bodybuilder Classic, even though I actually think that this is a slight variation from it. We got the 150 grams of chicken and 100 grams of plain green beans. This is the easiest meal to make, and it's one that I really appreciate having at this time of the day, because I do kind of want to like sit back down and get some work done before the day's over and before we start the bedtime routine. So it's really nice to be able to just like microwave chicken and green beans, and there's nothing else really to do. When you meal prep as well, just being able to pop something in the microwave saves an infinite amount of time. It's totally worth it to be able to prep the stuff. So this is kind of the only meal that I would really have any type of variation in that sometimes I will swap it for just plain whey and then swap the beans for berries. So either way, it's like a 200 calorie meal. But I would have the whey in the form of a creamy, but the creamies have been upsetting my stomach lately. So just plain chicken and green beans right now. I think the typical bodybuilder staple is chicken and broccoli, but we cut out broccoli at least a year and a half ago. So this is also the only meal that I'll eat at my desk. I try to prioritize eating away from my desk to kind of keep the separation so that it doesn't just feel like I'm, working throughout the course of the entire day. It's nice to have the breakup. So kind of breaking the monotony, breaking the routine and the schedule to be able to go and like walk into the kitchen and, have the meal. Like I have the pre-workout meal on the couch, I have the post-workout meal on the way home, and then this meal is the only one that I'll have at my desk because the last one will also be at the couch. Last one is my favorite. We had a slight adjustment to it, so I will show you guys what that looks like here in a second, but as usual, macros on screen. All right, and we've arrived at meal 5. This is the final meal of the night, and it's a good one because it's another one that has carbs at the very end of the day. This helps make sure that the sleep stays on point. There's nothing worse than going to bed hungry and waking up hungry and things like that during prep. Not really been a problem thus far, but it will eventually become a point where the leaner that you get, the less time that you have after the last meal before you start getting hungry, until eventually there's a point where it's like, even while you're eating the one meal, you're thinking about the next meal because you're already hungry, even though you haven't even finished the meal yet. So that's super fun. But I always prep both of these because Megan has protein oats as well. So the depressing part about it is now we're on the same amount of oats at the end of the day. So she gets 60 grams and hers comes with milk and real peanut butter, and mine comes with water and peanut butter protein. Though I will say I have been digging the salted peanut butter level 1, very much so, have been enjoying this in there. So yeah, so it's 50 grams of total whey at the end of the day. So what I'll usually do is split that between Greek yogurt and whey. So I have 25 grams that's gonna go into the 60 grams of oats with the water here. You know, it looks super duper appetizing, but once I mix it in and all that, it actually is pretty good. I'll put some cinnamon in there. And then I do have 1 little cup of Greek yogurt underneath this mountain of berries, 150 grams of berries. Total calories for this whole meal, all of that will be on the screen. But for the amount of food that I'm eating, the calories for this does stay pretty low. And again, I eat it very, very slow so that I can savor it, just unwind and relax after the day, wash off any stress, decompress, because that's super duper important to make sure that you're sleeping well. Because if you're just always in this fight or flight state when you're dieting, it can really burn you out and it can really lead to the deterioration of the physique. The visuals will just start to fade as you start to fade mentally. So really want to make sure that you do have time, probably at the end of the day, to be able to decompress. And then also too, I tend to, the things that are more stressful about my day, like making sure that I knock out all my steps, all the physical activity, all the training, all the stuff that takes my mental ability, like coaching and stuff like that, that all gets front loaded at the beginning of the day when I'm fresh. Because as the end of the day starts to taper down, I start to become less energetic. That's really more for when I get shredded though, because right now I still feel pretty dang good, and it is almost 9 o'clock, so we'll take it. But that has been the full day of eating. This is at 9 weeks out. Again, thank you to everybody who's been following along with the prep process. We'll continue to take you through this. Weekly uploads coming every Sunday at 1 p.m. Subscribe and like if you are new to the channel. We will see you soon.